Welcome to our final example hand. This one is going to be short and sweet. It's from a $15 6 max Hyper Turbo on PokerStars, and as with most Hyper Turbo hands, features no post-flop action. So we're only going to need tops AppGodH for this one. Let's start by confirming the tournament structure. It's a 6 max SNG with a standard prize structure with the money divided up 66% to the winner and 33% to second. There's nothing for third through to sixth. So the ICM starts quite intense and just gets crazy at the bubble stage and then disintegrates into nothing for the heads up. We're on the third level with the blinds at 25.50 and a 50-cent ante. The ICM intensity is moderate for the two larger stacks and quite high on the four shorter stacks. In these fast structured tournaments, you cannot hide from the action and you need to take any marginally plus EV spots. How many players are at the table? There's still 6. If one or two players had been eliminated, the ICM intensity would shoot up. But with 6 left, we can play closer to a standard chip EV model, but not exactly the same. Are the opponents tight or loose? Under the gun and cutoff seem tight, while the rest of the table seem closer to optimal or slightly loose. Don't have enough information to be certain. Sample size crucial. What are their levels of thinking? I couldn't know. I'm not going to guess. I'm sat on the small blind, so I have an additional investment in the pot. This will play into the pot odds. I will see what 4 players do in front of me and act second last, which is one good thing about being in the blinds when all the action takes place pre-flop. What are the positions of each opponent? I don't really have enough information for this to matter. I'm more interested in stack sizes and ranges. What's my stack size? I've got 7 big blinds left. The 2 big stacks have only got 12.5 big blinds, so it's a push-fold game. I can't hope to avoid action and reach the money, so I'm looking for any plus EV situation. What's the action in front of me? Well, under the gun, hijack, cut off or fold, then the button shoves all in for 7 bigs. What are my pot odds? 6 big blinds into a pot of 9.8, so that's around 3-2, which is 40%. I need a 40% chance of winning to justify a break-even call based on chip EV alone. With ICM, I'll need a bit more, perhaps 46%. If the ICM intensity were worse, this discrepancy would be wider. It's only by practicing that you get a feel for this type of discrepancy. So when is that gap wide? When is it not so wide? All about feeling the ICM intensity. What's the button's GTO range for shoving? As he's applying significant pressure on both the blinds, he can shove as wide as 47% here. That's almost half his hand range. A lot of players in these games will shove even wider as opponents fold too much, but 47% is optimal here. What's my GTO calling range? Bearing in mind my 40% pot odds, I have to call a wider range than you might think. 30% is about right here. Hands as weak as Jack 9 suited or King 8 off have positive expectation. If we were playing with no ICM, he could shove even more than 50% of his hands and I could call with around 40%. So you can see the ICM is causing around a 10% decrease in both his shoving and my calling range. If I fold, the big blind should call with as many as 42% of his hands, as his pot odds would be even better. If I call, his pot odds improve to just 27%, so he's still got to call with about 20% of his hands. Most people fold too much in that spot because of the danger of calling 2 all-ins. A lot of this just comes down to understanding pot odds and equity, throwing in a bit of ICM, and then feeling the solution. Now, what about the button's actual range? Would he be shoving too often or not enough? It's a crucial question here and fundamental for finding the right solution. If he only shoves 35% of his hands, I should only call with 24%. Essentially, I have to call with a range which is a bit less than 2/3 of his range. So if he shoves more than 50% of his hands, my calling range starts to explode. In these games, you need to get a feel for which players shove too wide and which players shove too narrow. Similarly, you need to know which players fold too much and which players call too much. That way you can make suitable adjustments. In this situation, I wasn't sure, so I decided not to deviate from a GTO solution. What's my hand? Well, I'm holding Queen 10 offsuit, which is a borderline hand. Technically, it's plus EV to call, but Queen 9 off, Jack 10 off, and even 10-9 suited are all negative EV. With any borderline hand, you need to take your time and think hard about what your opponent might be doing too much of. Ask yourself one more time, is he shoving too much here or too little? I still couldn't be sure, so I stuck with a call, which ended my involvement in the hand. Of course, whenever your thought processes have finished in a hand, you should continue to observe and take note of what your opponents have been doing. I haven't included post-hand thought processes in this video series, but observing showdown hands is important so you can build a profile of your opponents for future hands. In this case, the big blind, who was supposed to call with a 20% range, called correctly with 6-6. The button showed 8-8, and yours truly picked up 23 big blinds with a very marginal call. Neither of their hands revealed any particular information in this case. So that concludes the example hands in this video series. I hope you can see the benefits of using a structured process to improve your poker, and if you have any comments or questions, don't hesitate to contact me at ben@postfloppoker.com. That's ben@postfloppoker.com.